As promised, there's some stuff, some definitions that you need to know. So there's some terminology that we're going to be using throughout the the course of this class, and some of it you're like, I know what this means, but in the context of careers in fashion, how I'm going to be using these words. Some of the words you might have been using interchangeably, which is okay. It won't be okay on the exam, so make sure you know the definitions that I'm providing you here that are in the book. But this section we're going to talk about, this is just some of the terminology that you really are going to need to have a good grasp on in order to be successful later on in the course. On the next few slides, we're going to dive into some definitions of some key terms that we'll be talking about throughout this chapter, but the first three in particular, we'll be talking about throughout the course. And you're probably looking at these words right now. I'm like, I know what this stuff is, but let's give we're going to give some technical definitions and some variations, right? Some contemporary words, some contemporary understandings that we have of some of these words, right? So, what's the difference between fashion and style and design, right? They are complementary to each other, but they do have distinct definitions. So we'll talk about each one on the next couple slides, right? You know, what's the difference between a classic, a fad, and a trend, right? Is it high fashion, fast fashion, mass market, right? So what are the difference between those three terms, right? So that's what we're going to talk about in the next couple slides. We're going to talk about style. We're going to talk about style, fashion, and design, and then we'll talk about classic, fads, and trends. How do we distinguish between fashion and style? And it's interesting with how the book set the chapters up that they talk about style first, because I feel like fashion is what we buy, so the actual articles of clothing that we buy, and style is what we make of it, right? So how we put things together. I'm going to talk about do a personal story for a second. One of my friends, she always asks me, like, where did you get that from? And I'm like, Banana Republic. She was like, when I go to Banana Republic, that doesn't look like anything that I see. And then she's just like, it's just the way you put it together and your accessories, and my shoes are always colorful and kind of quirky. So style is really what you make of it, right? And oftentimes people use the words, fashion and style interchangeably, but really style is that artistic expression. It's how we express. It's how we put the pieces together that that expresses our identity, right? It expresses how we like to decorate ourselves. It's an outward expression of our personality. It's an outward expression, oftentimes, of our economic status. It can be an outward expression of our politics. It can be an outwardly expression of our cultural and religious beliefs, right? We had the head wrap on in the introductory video, right? So that's what style is. Style is it's not just fashion. That's the other thing. It's style is how your house or your room is decorated, right? What kind of car you drive, what your hair looks like, what your makeup, all of those things. All of those things go into style. So like I said in the previous slide, fashion is different, right? It's different from style, right? Fashion is just, a style, right? The garments that you use to create your style. And, fashion can be garments that are accepted for a period of time by a group. That's the crazy thing. Fashion is a group choice, right? I know you're like, Professor Johnson, what do you mean it's a group choice? It's a group choice because fashion has to have an audience large enough for people to want to buy it, right? So fashion is a group decision, and your fashion choices usually defines your group. Think about your people, right? Think about your group of friends. Your fashion choices usually are similar because it's an outwardly expression of your characteristics and your personality. And oftentimes we connect with people based on their fashion choices, right? So fashion has appeal to many different groups, and there are a couple of categories of fashion, right? And you know these categories. You may not think you know them, but first it's high fashion, right? So high fashion is something that's new. It's a new style that's innovative that the entire group hasn't caught on to yet. So if you look at this picture on the slide, if you look at literally head to toe, from her hair to the sweater to it looks like it may be a dress, but it could be two pieces, right? The tights and the shoes, right? For some people, this would be considered a high fashion look, and for some people, it would just be considered an everyday look, right? The layers on top of layers, right? And in contrast to high fashion, there is mass fashion. So things that everybody in society wears, right? So everybody in society, we wear t-shirts and sweatpants and tennis shoes and flip-flops. So those are mass fashions that can't go wrong if you sell a t-shirt, right? Now, mind you, there are high fashion t-shirts, but mass fashion is just something that everybody wants. And then, volume fashion, better known as fast fashion. So the book calls it volume fashion, but the word that we really should be using is fast fashion, and that just refers to apparel that just really has the greatest appeal to the largest population of fashion conscious people, right? So fast fashion is produced and sold in really large quantities and generally for really low prices. And when we talk about sustainability and fashion ecology, right, and fashion as a polluter, we'll talk more extensively about fast fashion. Now, the third term in this trifecta that we've been talking about is actually design. And design is just an interpretation of a fashion style, right? We put those two things together. Um, it's just a variation of the two. So let's look at the two pictures that we have here on the screen, okay? So on the screen, we have at the bottom right, we have a basic trench coat, right? So khaki color, tortoiseshell buttons. On the right, we have an awesome and amazing, sorry, cream and red are two of my favorite colors. We have a trench dress, right? So this is just an interpretation of a fashion item in a particular style. And if you think about it, I talk about in my fashion history class how nothing new was ever created, right? So, when we talk a lot about drape designs, so we talk about the goddess dress, and the one thing that hasn't really happened is nothing, in terms of design choices, nothing really new has been created. We essentially wear the same things that folks in the ancient world wore, right? So we wear draped dressings, we wear kimonos, we wear cloaks, we wrap scarves around our necks and heads, we wear tunics, we wear leggings or pants or jodhpurs, crop things, right? So, design is just taking a fashion or taking a style and interpreting it to a more modern aesthetic. Some things never go out of style. And that's what we're going to talk about now. We're going to talk about classic items and classic styling. So the images that we have here are Levi's jeans. You can never go wrong with a Levi's jean. And the other item that we have here is a Chanel jacket paired with jeans. I'm sure there's Chanel jeans as well. But a classic is just a style and a design that satisfies some basic need and just remains in general fashion acceptance for extended period of time. So Levi's are one of the attainable classics. There are a lot of classics that are out there. Again, the white T-shirt, or the heather gray or black T-shirts. Those are kind of staples. The racerback tank. The cutoff short. There's some things that are just classic items, right? That no matter what your socioeconomic background, age, political aspiration, these are things that you wear. Now, there's a Chanel jacket here. Okay, so the Chanel jacket specifically, is a classic, in part the Chanel version, right? So the boucle fabric, that's what it's made. That's what Chanel jackets are made out of. The fabric's called boucle. The Chanel version is classic aspirational luxury, right? But versions of this jacket exist again at all price points. So the boucle with the trim, with the gold buttons, the boxy square shape. Even though, like I said, this jacket here is probably, it's several $1,000s. We'll just leave it at that. It's a style and a shape that exists across all price ranges. And again, Levi's are they're inexpensive classic. Denim is an inexpensive classic. However, Levi does have a high-end version of their classics too. So classics are just, those things those wardrobe staples that you have. And think about it. There's some things in your wardrobe right now that are always in your wardrobe, or you have multiple versions of it in your wardrobe, and as soon as they wear out, you buy another one, or you can have a few in your wardrobe, just because they're things that you can never go wrong with. So what's a fad? A fad is generally some style or design choice that comes in, sweeps through in a quick amount of time, and then people get tired of it and it goes away, right? So a fad is just, something that comes in. It's maybe some feature or detail. It may be something that's overly exaggerated, that it excites people. It may be a fabric, but it's something that quickly comes and goes. Now, the picture that we have here is a leather shift dress. Not that this is necessarily a fad, it's just a cool image. Not that this is necessarily a fad, but fads could also be color, right? So this color is not, a classic color that you would see on leather. And fads often begin, in a low to moderate price range, and therefore they're usually flooded. The market is usually flooded really quickly over a short period of time, and because of that saturation of that item, we get tired of it, right? We don't want to see ourselves coming and going, right? So we don't want to see, at least I don't. I'm assuming, since you're a fashion student, you don't either, right? That you don't want to see your outfit on, every 20th person, 5th or 20th person that you see. So that's why fads come and go, right? And some of the fads that have recently kind of happened was the trucker hat kind of thing. Sometimes some of the geek chic and baggy slim fit, they keep going back and forth with that. The liquid leggings or liquid items. Hair colors can be translated into fads too. So fads come and go very quickly. We're going to wrap our definitions, our terminology up, at least this part of the terminology up, with talking about trends. And trends are just a general direction of style in fashion, and design in fashion. And the picture that we have here is the trend towards athleisure, right? So, you know, there was a point in time where only wore yoga pants to yoga, right? And athleisure is just common apparel now, especially during COVID, even more so than ever before. So, so a trend is It's something that brands do want to capitalize on. Um, and sometimes it's difficult to tell the difference between a trend and a fad, and sometimes even experts get confused. But you know, the longevity of a fad, of what may be considered a fad, can turn into a trend. And trends can originate anywhere, and they usually have a solid foundation that can support their growth, which a fad doesn't, right? So the trend for athleisure, athleisure has a function, right? So you can work out in it, and it keeps you dry if you're sweating. It keeps you cool. It keeps you warm. It has some function with it as well. And fads don't always have that. Okay. And one of the things that we have to think about is that fashion doesn't just happen, right? There's no like magic wand out there. It exists where somebody says, I'm gonna come up with a classic design, magic wand, insert my magic wand sound in there, right? Or someone says, a designer says, I'm going to be the next new fad, or I want to create a classic. That doesn't really happen. Fashion has to have it has to have some components, and that's what we're going to talk about in the next few slides.